What you're about to see started off like any other chilly Monday morning. The lights flickered on in the corporate office, desks lined the floor like silent sentinels. Then, a bucket tipped over, water splashed across polished tile. The older woman stumbled, her knees buckled, and she slid to the ground. She looked up, terrified, trembling, as laughter echoed around the room. A beautiful young woman stepped forward, her lips curling into a smug smile. The cleaner's hands shook as she tried to rise. The laughter grew louder, the mocking sharper. But what no one in that room knew was that the poor cleaner they mocked wasn't poor at all. She was the mother of the company's founder, the billionaire watching quietly from above. And the cruel woman laughing? She was about to lose everything. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Madame Evelyn had once been the kind of woman people spoke about with admiration. Elegant without trying, graceful without effort, and wise in a way that came only from years of building both a business empire and a family legacy. Since her husband passed away 8 years earlier, her days had become quieter, lonelier, and filled with a kind of reflection she never had time for in her younger years. Her only son, Daniel, had spent the last decade abroad, expanding the family's investments. Now he was finally returning home to take over the company that carried their name. But success had a way of attracting shadows, and Evelyn feared those shadows followed her son closely. She had watched from a distance as women hovered around him. Perfect smiles, perfect hair, perfect intentions on the surface, but their eyes told a different story. They loved his lifestyle, his presence, his connections, but rarely the warmth of the man himself, and that terrified her. The office he would soon lead had grown into a competitive ecosystem, a place where appearance mattered as much as performance, where status often outweighed sincerity. Many of the young women there whispered about Daniel as if he were a prize to be claimed, not a person to be understood. Evelyn knew she needed to find someone who cared more about her son's heart than his fortune. But kindness is not something you can detect with fancy dinners or polite conversations. It reveals itself in the small moments, how a person treats someone who can offer them nothing. So she created a plan only a desperate mother with a lifetime of experience could conceive. She would enter her own company disguised as a cleaner, unnoticed and underestimated, walking the same halls as those who might one day seek her son's hand. From there she would watch, listen, and learn. But she had no idea the cruelty she would witness or the loyalty she would find. When Evelyn returned the next morning, she wasn't the polished widow the world remembered. She slipped into cheap rubber slippers, a faded wrapper, and an old blouse that had lost its color years ago. Her reflection in the restroom mirror looked nothing like the woman who once hosted charity galas, and yet somehow she felt more invisible than ever. As she stepped into the main hallway, the reaction was immediate. A pair of junior staff exchanged looks before bursting into quiet laughter. Others whispered as they walked past her, eyes filled with the kind of disgust reserved for people society pretends not to see. Near the reception area stood the group she would soon come to recognize as the Mean Trio. Vanessa, sharp-tongued, ambitious, always calculating, leaned against the counter with a smirk that could slice through steel. Linda and Anita, her eager shadows, followed her lead, giggling as they nudged one another, glancing at Evelyn like she was something stuck under their shoes. But the cruelty was only beginning. Evelyn held her mop gently, focusing on her breathing, reminding herself of her purpose. She was there to observe, not react. And in the middle of the harsh stares and careless insults, she noticed someone different. Grace, a young intern carrying a stack of folders almost too heavy for her arms. Grace didn't step over Evelyn or pretend she didn't exist. She paused, greeted her softly, even adjusted the handle of a cart so Evelyn wouldn't struggle with it. There was no pity in her voice, only the natural respect one human should give another. Something about that moment stayed with Evelyn longer than she expected. But even as warmth flickered, the tension around her tightened. Every few minutes, Vanessa would toss a comment toward her friends. "These cleaners keep getting older," or "If she slows down anymore, we might as well mop the place ourselves." Each remark followed by rehearsed laughter. And deep down, she sensed a storm forming, one she could neither avoid nor predict. And the woman she least suspected was the one her son was already talking to. The whispers grew sharper as the hours passed, and Evelyn found that people became bolder when they believed no one important was watching. Chairs scraped deliberately in her path, trash was dropped intentionally for her to pick up, and Linda even nudged a bin with her foot just to watch Evelyn bend. Yet Evelyn kept her head down, her heart steady, reminding herself that true character revealed itself in moments like this. Grace appeared again near lunchtime, offering Evelyn a bottle of water without fanfare or expectation. It was such a small gesture, yet it felt like someone had handed her a lifeline in the middle of an ocean. But even that moment of kindness was interrupted by Vanessa's eyes narrowing from across the room. There was something in Vanessa's expression, a possessiveness, a silent calculation, that made her uneasy. She didn't know it yet, but Vanessa had already set her sights on Daniel, charming him through polished messages and carefully staged encounters. And the more Vanessa watched Grace interact with Evelyn, the more she plotted. But the cruelty was only beginning.
Day 1 drifted in slowly, and Evelyn moved through the hallways with the careful steps of someone trying not to draw attention, though attention found her anyway. While she mopped near the conference corridor, Vanessa strutted past with her designer bag swinging against her hip like a trophy. Without warning, she dropped it directly onto the damp floor, gasping dramatically as the bottom soaked through. "Are you serious?" she snapped, her voice slicing through the room. "Do you even look where you're cleaning?" Linda and Anita chimed in with exaggerated mutters, shaking their heads as if Evelyn had committed a crime. Evelyn apologized softly, reaching to help, but Vanessa snatched the bag away, wrinkling her nose. The humiliation sank into Evelyn's chest, heavy and familiar. She reminded herself why she was there, why she had chosen to feel this pain. But the cruelty was only beginning, and Vanessa had no idea whom she was speaking to. Day 2 brought a different kind of sting. During lunch break, most employees gathered in small circles, laughing, scrolling through their phones, or discussing weekend plans. Evelyn found a quiet corner near the supply shelves and opened the small container she'd brought from home. Simple rice and vegetables, seasoned the way she'd always cooked for her late husband. She barely managed 2 bites before Vanessa's voice floated over, loud enough for everyone to hear. "What is that smell?" she said, fanning her hand dramatically. "I swear poor people food always hits the nose first." Her friends broke into laughter, pretending to cough as they walked away. Evelyn lowered her eyes, her stomach tightening, but before the shame settled too deeply, Grace appeared. She placed a clean spoon and a cold bottle of water beside Evelyn without saying anything unnecessary. It was a gesture so soft, so human, that Evelyn felt her chest warm despite the cruelty surrounding her. But the tension in the office continued to rise. Day 3 was the moment everything shifted. Evelyn was wiping down a section near the elevators when Vanessa approached, speaking over her shoulder to Anita as if Evelyn were part of the floor. As she stepped past, Vanessa made a sudden movement, just enough to knock against Evelyn's arm. The push wasn't hard, but it was calculated, and Evelyn lost her balance. Her knee struck the tile, her hand slipped forward, the bucket tipped, and water spilled in a widening circle. Laughter erupted instantly, sharp, echoing, merciless. Her palm burned, her pride cracked, and for a moment she stayed there on the cold floor, breathing through the sting. Then Grace rushed to her side, kneeling beside her, lifting her gently while pleading with her to take it slow. Grace's voice shook, filled with genuine concern, not the forced pity Evelyn feared. But Grace wasn't the only one watching. Someone else saw everything. Daniel arrived at the company without warning, stepping into the lobby with the calm confidence of someone who had spent years earning his place rather than inheriting it. His return sent an immediate ripple through the building. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Chairs rolled, perfume was sprayed, makeup was patched, and jackets were straightened in frantic little movements that revealed more panic than poise. Vanessa caught sight of him first, her posture straightening like someone preparing for a photo shoot. She walked toward him with a practiced sway, adjusting a strand of hair and forcing a smile that looked polished enough for a magazine cover. "Daniel, welcome back," she purred, but he simply nodded politely, offering nothing more than the brief acknowledgement you give a stranger on the street. As she continued talking, Daniel's eyes drifted past her and softened when they landed on Grace, who was helping Evelyn organize a cart of supplies. Evelyn watched quietly from the corner of the hall, hidden behind her disguise, but not behind her instinct. A mother knows the shift in her child's eyes, the unspoken pull that cannot be faked or rehearsed. Daniel approached Grace with a gentle tone, thanking her for something small, holding an elevator door, organizing a file, a gesture Evelyn had missed, but the gratitude in his voice felt sincere. Grace looked startled, almost embarrassed, offering a shy smile before returning to her work. It wasn't flirtation, not the kind Vanessa excelled at. It was something warmer, something rooted in respect. Evelyn felt a strange comfort bloom inside her chest, the kind only a mother who longs for her child to find genuine companionship can understand. It was the first moment in weeks that gave her hope that Daniel might finally meet someone who valued who he was rather than what he owned. It was the kind of quiet admiration that older viewers know well, the hope that kindness will eventually be recognized. But that warmth did not go unnoticed by everyone. Across the lobby, Vanessa's smile froze the moment she saw Daniel's attention drift toward the intern instead of her. A shadow passed over her expression, silent, sharp, and tightly restrained. Linda whispered something into her ear, and Vanessa's jaw tightened in a way that made Evelyn uneasy even from a distance. Daniel continued speaking with Grace as if no one else existed in that moment, and though the exchange lasted only seconds, Vanessa felt it as a direct threat to everything she believed she deserved. Her confidence wavered, but only for a moment. Then she straightened her shoulders, her eyes narrowing with renewed determination. One thing was suddenly clear. Vanessa wasn't going to lose without a fight. As the days passed, Vanessa slowly pieced together something that unsettled her pride more than she expected. Daniel wasn't drawn to loud confidence or polished charm. He gravitated towards humility, sincerity, and quiet strength, the very qualities Grace embodied without trying. It changed something in Vanessa instantly. She kept her outward confidence, but her tactics shifted. The sharp comments softened, the smirks became polite smiles, and she began offering greetings to staff she once ignored. To anyone watching casually, it looked like growth. But beneath the surface, Vanessa was rearranging her strategy. She began leaving small messes for Evelyn to clean, then sighing loudly when Evelyn didn't move fast enough. She would smile sweetly at Daniel moments later, talking about concerns with the cleaning staff, in a tone that suggested she cared deeply about the company's standards. Evelyn watched it all quietly, her mop steady, her mind remembering every detail. But Vanessa's biggest mistake was about to expose everything.
It happened on a quiet morning when the sun had barely touched the windows and most of the staff had not yet arrived. Evelyn was moving slowly, her knees aching from the long week as she refilled her bucket near the hallway. Vanessa appeared from behind her with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She glanced around, ensuring no one else was nearby, then nudged the bucket sharply with her heel. Water splashed across the floor, and Evelyn slipped, hitting the tiles with a painful thud. Vanessa leaned down, her voice low enough to stay hidden from security cameras, but sharp enough to cut through the air. "Old people like you don't belong here," she whispered. What Vanessa didn't realize was that someone was there. Daniel had arrived early for a meeting and turned the corner just in time to witness everything. Every word, every expression, every ounce of cruelty Vanessa thought she had hidden. Daniel froze, his breath catching in his chest. He recognized the tone before he processed the scene. Mockery wrapped in sugar, cruelty dressed as confidence. What shocked him more was seeing Evelyn, the quiet cleaner he had noticed a few times, struggling to push herself up with trembling hands.
Vanessa straightened quickly when she saw him, her expression flipping into a practiced mask of concern. But Daniel wasn't fooled. He took a step forward, ready to call her out, ready to intervene, ready to end the charade. Yet before he could say a single word, Evelyn looked up at him and subtly shook her head. Her eyes, tired but determined, silently begged him to wait. Daniel hesitated, torn between outrage and respect for the silent plea she offered. He swallowed his anger and held back, even though every part of him screamed to speak up. He didn't know why she wanted silence, but something in him trusted her judgment at that moment. If you're still watching up to this moment, type "I'm still here" in the comments. It helps us know who loves these deep stories. In the days that followed, Vanessa felt a shift she couldn't fully explain but couldn't ignore. Daniel no longer offered polite smiles or brief nods when she approached him. His conversations with her became clipped, distant, almost mechanical. Every attempt she made to charm him seemed to fall flat, as if her voice could no longer reach him. Panic began to creep into her confidence, though she hid it behind makeup and designer shoes. Meanwhile, Evelyn felt a quiet change in her own heart as she watched Grace. She approached her one afternoon, offering to help her sort through a stack of supplies that had clearly been left for Grace to handle alone. Grace thanked her sincerely, not with the performative kindness so common in the office, but with genuine warmth that softened her entire expression. Evelyn used that moment to gently test her heart, asking if she was ever overwhelmed or tempted to give up. Grace simply smiled and said she was grateful to have work at all. As they spoke more, Evelyn learned that Grace was working long hours to support her sick mother at home. She never mentioned it to anyone at the office, not because of pride, but because she didn't believe her problems made her special. She treated everyone the same: superiors, interns, security guards, cleaners. Kindness without calculation. Her sincerity touched something deep within Evelyn, something she hadn't felt in years. But not everyone viewed Grace with admiration. Vanessa, noticing Daniel's growing respect for her, became consumed with jealousy. She began digging through Grace's background, asking invasive questions, and even persuading an intern to misplace a company card near Grace's desk to frame her. The plan collapsed almost immediately when Daniel reviewed security footage and defended Grace without hesitation, thanking her for her honesty and for the quiet humility she carried every day. Vanessa's resentment hardened into something sharper, and the truth Vanessa uncovered next sealed her own fate. Evelyn finally felt the weight of the week lift just enough to take action. She requested a private meeting with Daniel, her son, the man that she had watched from the shadows and silently guided without revealing her true identity. When he arrived, she spoke slowly, carefully, yet every word carried the gravity of weeks of observation and personal suffering. She described the small humiliations, the whispered insults, the deliberate sabotage, everything Vanessa had orchestrated to demean her and Grace. Daniel listened, his face tightening with each detail. His jaw clenched, his hands curled into fists, and a quiet fury settled in his chest. The realization of how deep Vanessa's cruelty ran made him feel both protective and indignant, knowing how close she had come to destroying someone who had shown nothing but honesty and kindness. Within hours, a company-wide meeting was announced, and the office buzzed with nervous anticipation. Staff whispered in corners, adjusting ties and skirts, guessing at the reason for the sudden summons. Vanessa walked in with her usual air of pride, smiling confidently, believing she was about to be recognized for her diligence and charm, perhaps even promoted. The murmurs around her didn't reach her ears. She was only focused on the spotlight she imagined herself stepping into. Yet as Evelyn's plan quietly unfurled in the background, the tension in the room thickened like a held breath, one that promised a reckoning everyone would remember.
Evelyn stepped into the boardroom, but she was no longer the frail, faded cleaner the staff had grown accustomed to ignoring. She walked with the poise of the woman whose name commanded respect, whose presence once shaped empires. The room froze. Eyes widened, mouths opened slightly in disbelief. Vanessa, seated near the front, went pale, her confident smile dissolving into panic as she recognized the truth. Evelyn paused, letting the silence press on the staff before speaking slowly, deliberately recounting every act of cruelty she had endured. The trips, the sneers, the whispered insults, the carefully orchestrated falls. Her voice, calm yet unyielding, carried authority and quiet power. She pointed directly at Vanessa. This woman pushed me. This woman mocked me. This woman showed me her heart, and it was empty. Each word struck like a hammer, echoing through the room and leaving no room for denial. Then Evelyn's gaze softened as she turned to Grace, who stood trembling near the back, overwhelmed by the unfolding truth. Evelyn smiled, the warmth of recognition and admiration clear in her eyes. But this one showed me kindness when she thought I was a nobody, she said, her voice filled with maternal approval and quiet pride. Grace's eyes welled with tears as Daniel stepped forward to nod, silently affirming everything Evelyn had witnessed. In the same moment, Vanessa's fate was sealed. She was escorted from the building, her schemes laid bare, her ambition crumbling under the weight of truth. Grace, on the other hand, was offered mentorship, guidance, and a promotion, a tangible recognition of her integrity, humility, and the compassion she had shown to someone who appeared invisible to the world. Justice had arrived quietly, and yet its echo would be remembered by everyone in the room. The tension in the room finally eased, replaced by a quiet warmth that seemed to settle over everyone present. Daniel approached Grace with a careful, respectful smile, his admiration clear in his eyes. He spoke softly, asking if she would join him for dinner, not as an employee, not as a subordinate, but as someone he genuinely wanted to know better. Grace, still trembling from the revelation of Evelyn's true identity and the ordeal of the past weeks, nodded shyly, her smile reflecting relief, gratitude, and the beginnings of a bond built on honesty and kindness. Nearby, Evelyn stepped forward and enveloped Grace in a warm, heartfelt hug, the kind of embrace that communicates approval, protection, and maternal pride all at once. Outside the office, Vanessa walked away alone, her head low, humiliated in front of the very people she had tried to manipulate and deceive. Evelyn's voice carried softly through the room as the final reflections settled in. Money can attract many, but kindness reveals truth. And when you strip titles away, only character remains. Her words lingered, heavy with wisdom and subtle satisfaction. The room was quiet for a moment, letting the lesson sink in. Then she turned toward the camera, and the story's moral became a personal invitation. What would you have done if you were in Evelyn's shoes? Was the punishment fair? Let us know in the comments. And for those touched by the journey of truth, courage, and compassion, the final reminder came gently. If this story touched you, hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful stories every day.